Hello and welcome to the Sports Dine with me, Kushagra, and I'm joined with six of the mighty, I guess, the Sports Dine and more than a game experts here. First of all, to our guest, Srinivas from More Than a Game, a very warm welcome. Welcome back to the channel. We love having you around, and not a very pleasant week it's been for you guys, but thank you so much for showing up. And beyond him, we've got the regular retinue that we always have. Anurag, Pratnesh, Sushil, Vijay, and Sulaksh. You guys know the drill. Welcome to the show. This is the Premier League review, and sort of a top of the table clash. I think at this point Leicester have dropped a little. Still call it top of the table clash. We saw a banged up, surgeon infused Liverpool, a squad which was not recognizable. I'm pretty sure even the most ardent of Liverpool fans would say they were not very confident going into that match. And Sushil, it was a fantastic performance from the boys. It was, if really, if you did not read at the back of the shirts, you really would know that almost half of the second team was playing, and you guys had to make like forced changes to the 11.
I mean, I've stopped keeping track at this point, but yeah, something
Well,
of that.
amazing.
range.
And as a Manchester United fan, I say this with gritted teeth. That is absolutely fantastic. Massive props to Jurgen Klopp and to the fact that the concept of playing football in a particular manner, whether it's gegenpress, whether it's heavy metal, whatever it is, been instilled right throughout the club. Massive kudos.
Yeah, and honestly, I think when we were making our predictions during the preview last week, in terms of the lineup for particularly in the defensive end of the pitch, I think the outlook was much more dire back then.
Yeah.
We didn't think Fabinho was going to play. Prathamesh shared that article about Robertson maybe not playing.
Yeah.
It was really bad. The fact that Fabinho played on defense and that Robertson played moving forward, I think those were the game changers. I thought Robertson had, just an amazing game. Him and James Milner were just brilliant. I thought they were out of this world. And obviously, there's a lot to be said about how the front line did. I think Mane, I wouldn't call it an off game, but he sort of relaxed a little bit in this game, maybe saving up for the Atlanta game in midweek. In terms of the game itself, I just wanted to highlight of things. It was nice to see Firmino get a goal as well. I think that's been something that a lot of people have gotten on his back for over the last month or two. He also scored during the international break. So, Liverpool fans have always said that his role in the team is very different. But obviously, as a striker, you need to get the goal on and off. And so the fact that he managed to get it after, all the church.
Yeah. Talking about orchestras and you need different players, someone in charge of the symphony.
Man, honestly, these days, anything any manager says becomes controversial. So I won't.
No, I'm not talking about controversy. I think it was sort of a point that probably homed in with all of us because.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say about Bobby Firmino is he's played, match in, match out for a team that has won trophies over the last 2 seasons. There's a reason he's there. And there's a reason he was there all of last season despite, not returning as many goals. And maybe as fans who aren't as sophisticated, sometimes we don't see those aspects of the game. But I think Klopp knows why he's keeping him there, and that's the important bit. In terms of, something you already mentioned at the start, the squad is just so robust in terms of their roles and their functions. I think Klopp really puts a premium on the system, right, over and above individual players. That's also served him well in the past. I think the only time where he sort of fell short of that was in the Champions League final when Salah got injured. That was the only season where I think he really relied on a single player a lot. But since then, he's probably corrected and he's made it more of a system team. And that's really serving us well right now. In terms of the, defense, we were sort of not. I don't want to say we were sort of,
100%. Yeah.
100% in terms of the defense, but I do feel like since Van Dijk's gone down, Liverpool have actually been defending all right. They've conceded just 3 goals in 7 games, right? And I think with Fabinho there, he replaces a lot of Van Dijk's contributions defensively, apart from the aerial threat, which I think Matip can probably take care of most of the time. But I think as long as Fabinho is fit, and obviously Alisson's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, as long as those two players are in there, I can still see us going all the way in terms of winning the title again. But I think right now we're in good place. The only thing now is you want to see Henderson coming back, Thiago coming back, all of those players getting integrated into the team again before the busy Christmas period starts. Kaita, I'm not sure what the nature of his injury is yet, but I'm hoping it's just a game or two because Salah is also back. He's going to be playing against Atlanta. So yeah, I think we'll be back to full strength in a week or two. So it'll be good to see how we progress after that.
Yeah, and Anurag, we spoke about players of the ilk of Vardy, Harvey Barnes, Cengiz Under, Tielemans, and a lot of other James Madison as well. None of them really seem to pose any kind of a trouble to this sort of an inexperienced last minute patched up defense and a midfield again in which they had to rely on a lot of non first team options there as well. Curtis Jones being one of the primary examples there. That kid really doesn't look 19 and doesn't look out of his comfort zone when he's playing at Anfield. So it's mightily impressive for the Reds, and I think alarm bells need to be ringing at any other club that might consider itself as a challenger.
Yeah, totally. I think, the only concern that you felt with Liverpool with all these injuries was, firstly, you thought defensively, okay, there might be a little bit of vulnerability. And you see yesterday, as I think Sushil rightly put, Fabinho covers up a lot of the groundwork, and Matip, he picks up whatever there is, aerial duties, whatever is there. He's there to shore up on that side. And I think that was the exact point I actually wanted to mention. And, Klopp, whenever he has any sort of a problem, he has any sort of crisis, one of the first people he goes to is James Milner. And that could be any position, quite literally. It could be a right back, it could be a holding midfielder, it could be a slightly offensive midfielder. There is Milner who's always there. He's going to come out and he's going to give a good performance. And I think
Milner was
for me, I think a
fantastic.
special shout out, fabulous. I think for a special shout out for Milner, because he did a fantastic job. And it's not easy for a player like him who's not going to get as many games as the others do. And he came out, he was really, really solid. And as far as Leicester are concerned, uh, I was really looking forward to see how Wesley Fofana does, because he's one defender who, he looks very promising. There were a lot. I actually put a post on Facebook like 10-15 minutes into the game, and right after that he was absolutely crap. So I think, perhaps, I think, this is a team again. Last year, if you remember, there was a very particular way in which Leicester were playing. And I think it was a game against Manchester City where the City won 3-1 or 4-1. They got the first goal. Vardy scored that one goal, which was the only basic plan which Rodgers had on that day. And once Pep Guardiola sort of what you said, nullified that, it's totally dead. And that's what we saw with Leicester yesterday. I think whatever plan he had, I think Klopp had 2 or 3 backup plans for it. I think Rodgers was totally outclassed yesterday. And I really we must appreciate Klopp for, with all the injuries that are going on. You were expecting, okay, nahi, ab hoga, and they're sort of escalating after each game now. And that's very, very dangerous signs. And after yesterday's win, I think I'm sort of given up hope that there will be another winner. And I think 2020 is going to happen this time, which is sort of a most disappointing side for a Manchester United fan. I think it's going to happen this season.
Yeah, man. Just like for COVID, we need a vaccine for Liverpool at this point. Vijay, another weekend passes, another game week passes. Chelsea just quietly go about their business, collect another clean sheet, another victory. I think I was not kidding when I said you were the most informed top 4 team before you guys were coming to Old Trafford. And certainly after having passed through Old Trafford, after having gotten over the defensive worries, this is a yet another Frank Lampard justification discussion here. Vijay, what do you want to talk about this match? It is just as straightforward as they come. I think Steve Bruce saw Chelsea, said, "Okay, I don't do big teams unless they're United. Bye bye." That is it.
Well, yeah, you can't really argue with Steve Bruce there, can you? But no, I think a lot of the good things that came out of the Newcastle game were because of Newcastle themselves. They didn't really, I think they didn't have a shot on target until the second half. And one of the concerns that we had was Silva wasn't going to play, so which Chelsea defense was going to show up? And there was also the question of who is Chelsea's third centre back. If it's Silva Zuma, is it going to be Tomori? Is it going to be Christensen? Or is it going to be Rudiger, who started this season not even in the squad? And
Yeah.
it's Rudiger. So there's a so there's a reinvention of
So
his career.
did Rudiger win the lotto this week? Is it?
Yeah, and essentially Frank has this strange thing where somebody who's not in his plans for a very long time, and basically, the guy who has COVID and is isolating suddenly comes out 1 week and I'm back in the squad. I will perform for you guys. And that's what happened to Giroud last season, and it's deja vu. This season, Giroud is going through the exact same thing again, and we have. I think one of our concerns now as a squad is, will we lose him in January? There's also the argument that Frank's given time to Rudiger so that he can sell him for a better amount in Jan. But like I said, the more pragmatic approach, the more rational approach is to actually loan out Tomori in Jan. But I think just from what you've talked about Liverpool and Leicester, you can just see how this fixture pileup has been destroying squads. So when I say that losing Giroud, losing Tomori or Rudiger, it could all change in a month. Like, we won't know who's injured. We might Werner is already, he's playing today right now as we speak, and just watching the first few minutes of the Rennes game, he's missed one chance and he's been scuffing his lines, and he really looks like a guy who needs a rest. So it's hard. But like I said, some good points from the Newcastle game was Kante is back. We have world-class Kante, injury-free, and he is doing his, two-man, one-man act thing pretty well. And that is probably the most unnoticeable thing that happens in this Chelsea squad. We've had reinforcements worth of 250 million. We've had all of that, but Kante is still Kante, and that was something that last season Frank had to deal with a lot. And this season, I think he's not played maybe just, I think less than a game. Like that's his entire time. He's played every other second this season.
I think only Old Trafford he wasn't particularly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
that tends to always score against United, so it is good.
Yeah, and just shows how rare it is for him to score, right?
Yeah. He has his picks, Srinivas, saw someone has been looking from the outside in. And I'm sure you have your own thoughts about Frank Lampard. He had a tough season last year. Did not have any opportunity to bring any new players in beyond the set that he already had, and came out of it, got a Champions League qualification. It seemed like Chelsea wanted to buy the entire world this summer. That's what the case was. Because they ended up outstripping any other English club at least. I think they probably outstripped PSG as well. No, I don't think anyone can. That maddening summer that they had, with Mbappe and Neymar, when you talk about 400 million, I still don't understand those FFP laws. But they went on a mad spin there in the transfer window. They've got some fantastic new players. Hakim Ziyech looks, I've got, you got those Turkish delights at the end of a meal. Hakim Ziyech is that.
That
delight.
left foot is a wand, bro.
Oh yeah, there. So I don't know.
No. Vijay would go on a different train. We don't want to go there.
Yeah, as long as you don't kiss your hand for the wrong reason.
How do you see?
Any particular reason you're posing this investment question to Srinivas?
Yes. No. Oh, what? No investment. No. Oh, no. It wasn't the investment question. at all. It just my train of thought took me there. I was never going to ask him that question. How do you see this Chelsea squad shaping up? Because it looks like a very credible team and looks like a team that can eke out victories wherein last season it wasn't getting those, and there seem to be a healthy mix of experience and youthful energy there.
Yeah, I mean, Anurag mentioned investment. I thought you wanted some FFP advice from me. So
Nah. I think Chelsea are the OG FFP deniers. I
Yeah.
think you guys came in afterwards.
Yeah, I
So
think-
I don't think Chelsea need any advice there.
I think Vijay and I think we need a podcast for us separately because I'm a City fan, he's a Chelsea fan. So yeah, and we're unabashed about that.
Apna sapna oil bani.
Yeah, apna sapna oil money. Dude, I'm Mumbai City fan as well, so I think I
Of
can join
what you
in.
know of, pretty much. Yeah.
नहीं, अगर oil money नहीं होता, I'd still be seeing Steven Ireland playing. So life is very very good. But talking about Chelsea, yeah, I mean, I think there were lots of people who were slandering Chelsea and they were very worried about Chelsea. Not worried, but I think they had lots of bad things to say just because they spent so much money. Me personally, I never thought that I never thought that Chelsea would not get top four. I always thought that when these players settle in, they're going to smash it. And I don't even think we've seen Chelsea at their very best yet. Like
That's the scary part for teams.
This is like nothing. Like that performance against Newcastle is just so standard. Like I'm sure Vijay was watching that and he was like, yeah, this is all right. Because if you see the number of chances Timo Werner missed, you still see that there's so much more they can do. Chelsea are going to be a very, very scary team. This season, obviously, they won't win the league or anything like that. And not that that's supposed to be the aim anyway, because lots of people were saying that they're supposed to win the league because they spend so much money. But if that's the case, then, coaching doesn't matter, right? But yeah, just talking about this performance, I think, yeah, Chelsea were quite good. I don't think they were incredible. And because Newcastle were just subpar. And can you blame them?
Newcastle won Newcastle, basically. Yeah.
I mean, there's no plan. I mean, they just turned up there. They might as well just, sit and watch the game like we were. But yeah, I think I'm a big Mason Mount fan. I know I'm digressing, but I've always
Frank has just confirmed today that Mason Mount's not his son.
Not his son, yeah. I think the DNA test is still left to find that out. But yeah, I think Mason Mount is excellent. Even in the England-Iceland game, he played in the midfield and he was brilliant. I think before the Newcastle game, I think Mount had 159 more pressures than Kante or something like that. Like Mason Mount's work rate is so underrated, and he's like, people expect him to be this absolute baller, the second coming of Ronaldinho, because of the way he looks, or maybe because of the hype that he generated at Derby. But he's a very different player, and I've always had this theory about Mount that like the reason why Mount is a manager's dream is because he does everything. Like there's no complaints about his game. There's no excuses, and I was very very impressed with Mason Mount. Like, when you watch another team and you focus on that one player that you're just waiting for them to get the ball. I know for lots of people, for obvious reasons, of Hakim Ziyech because he's so nice, he's so easy on the eye. But for me, it's Mason Mount. I think in a midfield three, I think Mason Mount is excellent. He does pretty much everything. And as Vijay mentioned, I think even though it's not a game where Kante was supposed to be Kante, I think he was very good. Like for us opposition fans, it's kind of almost like bewildering why Kante plays in an advanced role, because Kante, where he plays, he's brilliant. So yeah, I think it was a very good performance. I still think that I'm not the biggest fan of Timo Werner playing exactly on the left. I think he is an inside forward, so like kind of like how Henry used to do, where he used to be on the left, but then he used to drift into the center. I think that's more Timo Werner. He's not a left winger. Germany did that as well in the recent demolition against Spain, and it just did not work out. So I think that's something that I'm not the biggest fan of. But again, you can't, there's Tammy Abraham playing there, and he scored like 3 in his last 3 games in all competitions or something like that. So yeah, again, I think that Kai Havertz would sort of struggle to get into this team, because what this team has is balance. I think that's the most important thing. If you have a midfield of, Kante and Mount and Kovacic, who again I'm a huge fan of this guy as well. Like that balance. Like in the initial games that you were watching with Chelsea, of course Lampard didn't have like enough time to incorporate all of his ideas, which is why you saw you saw a team that was confused, and you could tell. But like with this team, I think there's a lot of balance. So, and especially you saw Hakim Ziyech dropping in deep, like he almost played as a 10 or even deeper than that sometimes. And his crossing was absolutely excellent. I think Tammy Abraham's movement was so good. You saw Mount sometimes making runs into the right because Ziyech used to occupy that central space. So there are lots of little things that are happening that are very easy to not notice in a game that's such a dead rubber because Chelsea was just so far out in front. So yeah, great win again. And I think if you're a Chelsea fan, you should be very happy because yeah, I think what again Lampard again is another person who gets so much stick, but he had a transfer ban last season for him to finish in the top four was excellent. So whether he's the man who's going to win them leagues and titles, that's something that only time will tell. But I think for now, Chelsea have built a very good team and they've invested smartly, and they shouldn't really get criticism for that because that's what you're supposed to do. You'd rather do a Chelsea than a Man United, right? So I had to get that dig in there. So yeah, I think Chelsea are a great team, and I think they're going to do so much better. Like this is just the start.
Yeah, and I think you'll struggle to find people who will not agree with you there. I think from very very well performing clubs, it's about time we look at the stark opposites of life. You with the yin you have the yang. With the good you have the shit, and you
Excellent. That's
sort
agree
of
with
yeah. So to the first club whose fans are perennially pained, then we'll jump on to the other clubs whose fans are perennially pained. Sulaksh, we've spoken a lot about Bielsa. We've spoken a lot about this Leeds team, and we've spoken a lot about their performances versus the big teams. There were no surprises whatsoever in the manner in which Leeds tried to win that game. Because let's be very honest, Leeds tried to win that game the entire time, and Arsenal was successful in not allowing them to win that game. As far as Arsenal themselves trying to win that game, I would like to start with you. Did you see any real attacking intent from Arteta's team? And you spoke about something about Arteta with respect to the backing that he's going to get from fans. Do you see? I see a lot of famous Arsenal YouTubers already turning on Arteta. Do you think this is going to be another OGS story for you guys as well? The initial bounce and then just a dredge in the mud.
Kushagra, if he says that Arsenal had attacking intent, he should crawl into the tent which is built behind him.
No, then I think I'll need to spend this video in the tent because Arteta did set out to win that game. I think Arsenal did not have attacking intent because of the personnel on the pitch. But if you see, it has been a long time since we've started a game with four at the back. And
Yeah, because that was the thing that I sort of saw with the Arsenal fans at that point. They were very happy with the lineup.
With the lineup, we were happy, and
except for Billion, right? You mentioned Billion, you weren't very happy with.
With Billion, actually, the issue is that why fans were unhappy was because he's obviously not been performing well, but also because
look at Vijay's smile.
Whole Dubai.
He's like, we sold it this guy.
Yeah, this is Dubai incident that just happened where he went to Dubai and Arteta was not happy about it. So fans, basically, people are questioning Arteta's selection of strictness and selection of who he lashes out at and players that he's uh, gotten out of the team who can't get a sniff versus players like Willian who are getting to start. He did have a good first half though, and he was taken off at half time. I don't know what that's about. We'll probably get to know if it's an injury. We did set out to win the game, but like we spoke about in last week's video, Leeds did exactly what we expected them to do. And they were, I would say, the only thing they were not was clinical. They were brilliant. Apart from that, they had good pressing. They were totally bypassing our three-man midfield, which was surprising because I think if you take Partey away from that midfield, which he's not been there for long at all, in fact, for us to see, there's not a lot to shout about. I mean, Xhaka has improved with his ball carrying, but Ceballos isn't really the player who's getting through the mid lines, and he's always on either of the wings, supporting either of the wing backs where as and when necessary got into play. So I think Leeds probably won that game when Pepe got sent off, and we'll come to that massive point. So I would like to get a couple of people's opinion here because I think it was a completely stupid decision, and it was on Pepe's part. It was a completely stupid decision to go for that headbutt, or I mean, partial.
Whatever
headbutt.
it was, at least my only argument for Willian would have been at least he doesn't go around headbutting people, because at least he allows you to maintain a complement of 11 on the pitch.
Yeah.
There are connotations, so I think we should be a little careful about what we say about Pepe, because there are connotations of some sectarian or racial abuse on the part of the
So
Leeds
I
player.
mean, the racial abuse, that's completely.
We don't know that yet.
We don't
know
support
that
that
yet.
at all, yeah.
So I would rather that we don't comment on it unless we have
Yeah.
we have all the details. It could be heinous. It could just be stupid. But the reaction, regardless, you know what position you're going to put yourself in, your team and yourself in. So Pratmesh and Srinivas, I'll open the floor to you guys primarily. Pratmesh, with you first. It was quite honestly not just the Pepe decision. Just in general, the performance was quite dull, lackluster from Arsenal, and I'm sure the fans must be getting more and more irritated with this.
Just sorry to butt in, Kushagar. Just for the stats' sake, was it like Leeds 25 shots and then Arsenal 2 shots at the end of the game?
Yeah, Leeds at 25
And those
Arsenal
two
had
shots
9.
came because of Saka.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I think Anis Saka is the best player of the club right now.
I think
Absolutely.
after Pratmesh is done, I'll head back to. So I have another version after
Yeah.
15 minutes.
But yeah, I think
Alternate facts.
Yeah, alternate facts. But I think coming to the game and coming to the first things first, Nicolas Pepe, I don't think it was something that he should have really done. That's the only thing that I really want to say about it. I think it was totally. I think as Arteta said in his press conference after the game, that is exactly what it was. Coming to the game in itself, I felt Leeds absolutely dominated the left hand side of their play. I feel like Hector Bellerin must be feeling like, what's happening with me today? There is Alioski who's coming. There is Dallas who likes making some kind of overlapping runs. Calvin Phillips was specifically targeting balls in that zone. You could see like players like Bamford trying to shift towards that gap between Bellerin and the centre backs, and Harrison was absolutely tormenting, Hector Bellerin 1v1. It was just like they knew what they were going up against. They knew that they could target Hector Bellerin because Pepe is not going to track back. And Alioski, what was he doing with his final delivery? I am pretty sure.
It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that Marcelo Bielsa had a go at him in Argentine Spanish language, and then somebody translated that to him. But yeah, but pretty sure that happened because I think Alioski himself probably could have assisted 2 or 3 goals in the game. And I think the man of the match definitely was the woodwork, because had it not been for the woodwork, Leeds would have scored a couple of goals at least. I think Rafinha chance. I think Rafinha was a little unlucky. He was already going behind when he was hitting the shot. So
Yeah.
Bamford also hit the post as well. So Leeds, I think they missed a lot of chances. They were really wasteful. I think even on set pieces, I felt Dallas missed a good chance. I felt Liam Cooper missed a good chance. Also at the same point, on open play as well, Alioski was absolutely dreadful with his deliveries. So they had so many chances, right? You talk about 25 shots that Leeds had, but Leeds only had 4 of them on target, and the 4 other that hit on the post. So apart
How
from
many
those 8
goals
shots,
is
you're
that?
probably looking. That's 0 goals, right? That's
No,
0
I'm
goals.
That's a
saying,
lot.
yeah.
That's still a lot, bro. 8 is still
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so 8
No,
shots.
we've consistently had this criticism of Leeds. I think I remember
Yeah.
talking to you, Srinivas, that it is quite telling that the period of dominance that they had against City, they couldn't really fully capitalize on it. They probably could have won that match.
Yeah.
And that has been the case with some smaller teams as well, let alone the bigger opponents. But I think as a panel, all of us can agree, and we'll start with you, Srinivas, here, that there is no threat of relegation for Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, Leeds are such an excellently coached team. I think that's the biggest thing that you can say. Like, when you look at their players as well, you see the picks, and again, they're so intelligent. Jack Harrison is a former City player. I think he's on loan
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Such a good find. Like,
He's a former NYCFC, right?
yeah, and he drives with the ball with his left, but he uses his right as well. I think he can play as a wing back as well. Like, he's such an excellent player. Same with Stuart Dallas. Like, you see him, he was playing the initial games as a left back, but then you see him slot into midfield as well the other day. So yeah, I think just the coaching is so good that I don't think from an Arsenal point of view, I don't think it's embarrassing to be outplayed by Leeds. It's embarrassing to play the way they played. I think that's the thing. Because
Yes, agreed.
I think for a good 70 minutes against us as well, I think Leeds were incredible. You don't see teams attacking like that. It's so gung ho that it's just you feel suffocated even as a fan to watch them. So yeah, relegation is not even a conversation. But yeah, with Leeds again, it's every game you watch them play. It's just such a breath of fresh air because what they do is, I mean, even from the top side, you don't really see that because it's just so fearless that I think that's the kind of football we all like to watch. So yeah, I think Marcelo Bielsa has coached an incredible team, and it's so good that like it almost feels like you can take one player and put another, and he puts an absolute shift in. I think that Struick guy got injured. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And you see, Tyler Roberts come in or anyone come in, and they just look excellent. Yeah, Alioski, as Prathamesh mentioned, had an abysmal game. But once again, while they didn't score too many goals, you can see that if things come off for them, they win that game 6-1. And we talked about the Woodwork being the man of the match as well. So I just think that the fact that
and Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, Calvin Phillips as well, targeting that side. He's such a good player. So when you just see what they're doing, it may not result in the most amount of goals, or it might not result in the 3 points always. But to see the vision being executed is good enough for now. And if they can sort of iron out those little mistakes or the little problems, they can become a top team without spending anything. You see the goalkeeper as well, Meslier, such a brilliant player. So yeah, I think relegation is not even a conversation.
Yeah, but don't you think, Srini, at this point, the way Leeds are playing, just probably an objective question.
Yeah.
Feel that they will experience Bielsa burnout? Considering
No, something before Srinivas jumps in, I think we could answer that question with 46 game championship season already.
Yeah.
So I think that if they've had 2 seasons under Bielsa and most of the squad.
But yeah, I think this season is even.
And both season they went right till the end.
Yeah.
And it's a very young team. And both seasons they've won in the playoffs. So they've had 60-70 match seasons, 2 seasons in a row. In terms of burnout, I don't see that. Srinivas, if you got anything else.
Yeah, nothing. That's an interesting question, Prathamesh. Personally, with my team as well, like with City, in the Tottenham City video that we recorded, we talked about how I think Sushil mentioned how we don't press how we used to, and that's perfect. I mean, that's just a very accurate point that no one focuses on, is how with teams like City as well, like when you tend to see it in the second or the third season where you see that the team doesn't press anymore because they do experience a burnout. Now with the Leeds players, they always talk about how the training sessions are much more grueling than the actual matches. So that's telling as well. So maybe that never happens. So it may happen with this team because they don't have the biggest squad. And those problems are different kinds of problems with like smart investment and over time when you actually experience that. I think that'll be very important for them also so that they can sort of devise an alternate plan. But for the time being, we can only focus on what they're doing right now. And yeah, you can sort of talk about how they're not converting their chances, but I actually think that's clutching at straws because I'm sure there were lots of people who were skeptical about what they're going to do in this league despite
Agreed.
See how they're bossing teams. Even against Liverpool, they were so good. First game of the season, lost that game 3-4-0. You're like, oh, it's all right. It's just Liverpool. Didn't happen. Against City, they were so good. Arsenal as well. I mean, that game should have been a 4-5-0. It was almost irritating to watch that they just couldn't score the goals. It was.
I just felt like giving Elios a tap on the back.
Yeah, like
one cross.
Irritating for you. Probably, but it was brilliant for me to watch. Srinivas, I would say.
Yeah.
One man's trash, another man's treasure.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to tell you. So
I just want to add one last thing. Just one last thing. Yeah, just one last thing I want to add is like my brother is not a football fan. Okay, so he's watching me watching this, and I'm like, oh yeah, Cooper, Alioski, whatever. And it's like it's 0-0. Like, what's fun about a 0-0? And I was like, if you watch this game, it's not just a 0-0.
It didn't feel like it. Yeah,
it was quite an entertaining
game of football. So
at that picture where Pepe gets sent off around 52, 53 minutes, I think we actually played better for the next 40 because we pressed into a 4-4-1 with Oba up top, and we've not spoken about this. So Aubameyang played up top.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. That's the problem. It became so insignificant, that fact that we've all been crying about for the entire season because of the performance.
But in the end, if you see, we had the 2 best chances in the last 40
Yeah.
minutes to finish the game off and actually get a smash and grab, similar to what Leicester did to us like 3 game weeks ago. So I think what we can take away from that match is we need our full strength squad and we need someone to take up that role of the central midfielder, which we tried Joe Willock this time, and you can't really say it worked. In the first half, we were outplayed, and Leeds could have gone ahead in the first half itself, and probably it would have been a sadder story in the second
How is
half.
Ozil not playing instead of Willock rooted?
It's, I mean, with the Ozil story, there's no point in commenting because he's been left out of the squad, and I think it's more of political and more of like reasons with distrust from the board rather than what Arteta has claimed as to be footballing reasons. That's become the meme that's been going around. And the way we responded wasn't like the way we responded to red card was good, but the way we responded to the Aston Villa defeat, and even in Emery times and even in early Arteta times, we've always had that bounce back, pseudo good feeling that we Arsenal fans always ride on that FA Cup and that good victory after a run of 3-4 bad matches. Then we were the underdog. But I think this was a very underwhelming performance, and there are alarm bells ringing definitely at the Emirates, and we need to sort our way out, and we need Partey back as soon as we can.
I'm seeing Vijay smile, okay, and after that Vijay smile every time reminds me, that he talked about last time around that Arsenal is going through phase and they're doing it season after season after season such a way that in a few months probably we're going to wonder whether they're actually a part of the Big Six or not. That's the level of
Dude,
disappointment.
I just smiled, but
before anyone could attach anything to it,
Yeah.
He's watching the match. He has nothing to do with the entire
He's probably,
video.
No.
watching Chelsea versus United.
No,
Yeah.
but actually, you bring up a point. But this is like you said, Arsenal fans have had to go through the flip flop for so much time. But this is the time where I actually expect an Arsenal fan to actually accept they flopped. But he's actually talking like they didn't, and it was like a Kellyanne Conway kind of a conversation where
Oh God.
yeah, and I'm
No.
sorry,
Oh,
but I just
God.
can't.
Oh,
I feel
God.
bad for Bielsa. I'm just like he did a really good job, and they really
my
should have won that game.
my point is that
And
if Leicester
yeah.
hadn't scored that goal with Jamie Vardy in our game, and the game would have ended nil or
We're not
Oh my God.
Had
But
Aguero
just-
not scored, we would have won the league in 2012.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense. Bro.
exactly.
That's not a
just
point.
to
You can't
just to
just-
Prathamesh's point about just to Prathamesh's point about the big six or the top six. I don't think the top six was ever about where you finish in the league. It's just about
It was never
financially.
the reason you went
The
from
financial
Big
strength.
Four to Big
The Big
Six.
Six, yeah, Big
Big
Six.
Six isn't the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, it's
the
never
six
that.
financial behemoths. And
Yeah.
be rest assured that Arsenal remain in that very well entrenched in that particular financial reality. It's just from one perplexing owner to the other. Anurag, Manchester United, the big
I'm gonna mute now. I'm
gasp,
gonna mute now.
big gasp of TSD, all the oohing and eyeing and the sighs, all of you guys can let those out.
Just a reminder, you guys won this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Much winning, such fun. I'm the host, so of course I won't dissect it here. Cheap plug for SOM, please. The Sound of Manchester, please do come there if you want to listen to
Yeah.
full hearty rants on Manchester United from 1890s to right now.
Yeah.
It's all on me. Anurag, how's the match? How did you enjoy it? Manchester United win it again.
I was so hoping you wouldn't come to me first, but okay, fine. So again,
You don't get to
about the
quietly
game that
sit
was
there
totally,
and
yeah.
smile at us while we make fools of ourselves.
Yeah, it's totally fine when you're talking
I feel
about
like this is
Chelsea.
a Woodward and a Schoolster
Yeah.
conversation. You don't get to sit there
Yeah.
quietly and yeah, okay.
I know. But again, it was quite a dull performance. Again, going back to the small thing that we've mentioned like 7,000 times in the entire whatever videos, 50, 60 videos that we've made on TSG. It's the same old thing that we're going to repeat. So I think if you really want to understand what I'm trying to talk, fans, you can just, I wouldn't say fans, viewers, you can just go and watch some of our videos to just get a little perspective perspective. Again, the same old mistake with the starting 11. What has VDB done wrong? We've asked who did he have a pass on someone's wife? God knows what has he done.
Why
I'm
does it
happy
have
he's
to be a
getting a
pass
start
on
today.
someone's wife every time, dude?
Not everyone is Zaha.
I don't know. I think that it's hard.
Van de Beek isn't he married to Bergkamp's daughter?
Yeah, imagine.
Yeah.
No, not married.
Whatever.
He's just dating.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Still
By the way,
He's
by the way,
Bergkamp's
before
daughter.
By the
before we
way, why are we talking
Yeah.
about Van de Beek
Yeah.
and his partner?
Yeah. By
Exactly.
the way,
United.
yeah, let's talk about United
Very
and Van de Beek starting now for in the Champions League game. So yeah, that much sanity we have with ourselves. And while Anurag's facing a little connection issue, I'll
Yeah.
jump in here. So Van de Beek doesn't seem to have robbed anyone. It's just that somehow Ole feels that he needs time to integrate into this team, which is I feel we have been
Correct.
talking about this point a lot of times. That his team selection is going to cost him the job sometime. And every week it just feels like it's now a game away. It's a game away. It's a game away because not that he has the resource, like he hasn't been given the resources. We all accept that, but it's just that in spite of that, he's still making stupid decisions, right? That's the biggest problem now in the Champions League game. He started Martial on the left hand side, Rashford on the right. How does that make sense? This is exactly the kind of things that are going to make him lose their job. And had it not been for VAR and Bruno Fernandes, we would never win that game. And to be honest, even if the second penalty was saved, that was still going to be retaken because Johnson decided to move out of his line.
Yeah, I don't think many goalkeepers understand the concept of staying on their
Yeah,
line, because
but I think
a lot of them make those
to
mistakes.
their defense, when a player jumps in a run up like that, it's difficult.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
really difficult
Agreed.
Yeah.
Coming
I think
back to
that's
you,
what I
Anurag,
think
coming back to you.
Ian Wright mentioned. Yeah, that's what I think Ian Wright mentioned in the postman that that entire that style should be banned, and I think Jorginho and Bruno would be totally disappointed with that. But again,
I don't think
West
it
Brom
can
had a
be
very
banned.
good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he makes decent point. But again, that's for another day. So again, West Brom had a very deep. It's a simple plan. Just sit back, wait for a counter. I think that's what they did. They gave the ball to United, and that is the worst thing any team can do to United. And we
Best
can't
thing
do
for
anything.
them. Best thing for them.
Yeah,
Worst
best thing for them.
United.
That's a very fan thing to say. That's a very United fan thing to say. We have the ball. We don't know what to do with the ball. So that's incredibly funny. And
The ball
hilarious.
is kryptonite,
that's
and
what happened.
United players are all Superman.
Totally. So yeah, honestly, there wasn't anything to talk about. I know I can go back to the day when Glazers
That's
came
why it
in,
was
but
kept last,
again,
Anurag.
we'll go
That's
back.
why it was kept
It's
last.
very bad.
Everyone's tired.
Just end.
Yeah.
Just say
Srinivas
thank you,
is- yeah.
Srinivas, thank you everyone. It's just useless talking about United right now.
So Srinivas's brother asked about how the hell are you so invested in a 0-0 which is not even your team. United's 1-0 was the complete opposite of that. you could have
totally.
been a hardcore United fan sitting at the Stretford end and you'd still be snoring off to sleep.
I'm not
And,
even joking. I'm physically sleepy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put me to sleep.
It's also 1 a.m. in the night, so yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, boys. Thank you so much for joining me here. It's been and thank you so much to all of the viewers. Just before I wrap up, once again, Srinivas, thank you so much for joining us here, guys. As I've told you over the past couple of videos, I also write for More Than a Game. Anurag has written for them in the past, and Srinivas is the owner of the website. Soon enough, I'm sure they'll have news around some different kinds of content that they're trying to come up with in the next coming future. But do check it out. We'll keep the links to the website and to the articles written by me and by, of course, others on the website in the video description below. Pratmesh, Sulaksh, Vijay, Sushil, and of course Anurag. Thank you so much. As ever, see you soon. And Srinivas, hope to see you soon again. And to all of our viewers, please do keep watching, sharing, liking, and subscribing. All of that good jazz. And